Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Clockedin with me, your host, Jordan Edwards. I'm thrilled to have you tune in as we dive into the dynamic world of productivity, success, and stories of incredible individuals who've mastered the art of getting things done. Whether you're commuting, hitting the gym, or just relaxing at home, this podcast is the go-to source for inspiration and actionable tips to level up your productivity game. I'm on a mission to unravel the secrets of those who seem to effortlessly manage their time and achieve their goals. So if you're ready to clock in and unlock your full potential, you're in the right place. We've got a lineup of amazing guests, industry experts, and thought leaders who will share their insights and strategies to help us crush your to-do list and make the most out of every moment. Get ready to get inspired, motivated, and equipped with the tools you need to supercharge your productivity. This is #Clockedin with Jordan Edwards. Let's dive in. Hey, what's going on? I got a special guest today. We have world-renowned corporate storyteller and pitch alchemist, Donna Griffit. She's helped over 1,000 startups, corporates, and investors raise hundreds of millions of dollars and accelerated their sales with a personal touch and unmatched messaging. Donna, how are we doing today?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me, Jordan.
Awesome. I'm super excited to have you on. The way you view things is very interesting, and I'm excited to dive in. But to start off, where does your story begin? Where does this all start for you?
So a little aside to audience, when you're asked that question, you have the power to choose where you want to start. Do I go from like birth or do I go from a professional thing? Just, I a lot of times when I coach people on storytelling, it's like taking that. So where do I choose to start today? I don't think that anybody, at least when I was a kid growing up, thought, oh, I want to be a storyteller when I grow up. I didn't know that even existed. You'd maybe a librarian or someone that came around with a guitar and told stories around campfires. But my life has been a series of twists and turns that have taken me on unexpected paths. So I always was into acting and I was always into people. So when I discovered when I was about 16 that there was something called drama therapy, I'm like, that's what I want to do. And I ended up getting into the master's program I wanted to at NYU. I kind of worked from the age of 16 up to that to meet all their requirements, only to learn that, I hadn't become an actress because I didn't want to be, the starving artist, but what they pay drama therapists was basically a starving artist. I could make more money waiting tables. So I'm like, okay, there's got to be something that combines this love, that love, the other. And I don't know, Jordan, if you know the term ikigai. It's a ikigai. It's a Japanese term, Ikigai, and it basically means like your reason for being. And it's a combination of like your passion, your mission, your vocation, and the needs of the world.
Wow.
And if you have like all of those things, if you sit at the crossroads, there's like a nice little flower kind of diagram that they show it. If you're right in the middle of that, then you're in your calling, what you're supposed to be. I'm like, okay, I know I'm good at this. I know I love doing this. I know that people really need this. What would make me happy? Where do I find all this? Where can I actually make a living doing this? And I was at NYU at the time. I found that they had a continuing program in training and organizational development. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Corporate training, that's great. Sent my resume as I was still doing that certification out to the first ad I saw on Craigslist, which basically looked back then the same it does now. And my then boss and longtime friend, mentor, Brad Boyer, hired me. He basically said, you're perfect for this. I just need to see you on stage to make sure. I said, well, I happen to have an off-Broadway show that I'm in that's going up next week. It was an Irish show. I had to play an Irish sister in the time of World War II. And that was it. He saw it, hired me, and the rest is history. So I've been doing corporate training and presentation skills, business writing skills since 2003. And then I shifted in 2008.
Yeah. So before we do the shift, first of all, I love how you had, you're bringing in the points of storytelling. Like to start, most people don't even realize that when you're answering the question, you have a lot of power yes, the person asking the question has a ton of power, but you yourself have an immense amount because
how do you want to structure your story today? Who do you want to be today? And I've introed myself probably, hundreds of different times. And I always try to find a little twist, a little something different. And one thing will lead to another, and that'll lead into the rest of our conversation also. So it's really cool.
absolutely. Absolutely. And then the other incredible thing is what you mentioned about finding our calling and why sometimes we struggle with that, but you still manage to ask yourself those questions. You still manage to challenge yourself. You still manage to challenge yourself and make that jump.
I honestly don't know where that came from. I've had this inner voice in me, this inner drive ever since I was a kid. And I was lucky to have a mom that just was like, you do you be who you want to be. She never was like, oh, go be a lawyer, go be a doctor. And which is great because the path that I had waiting for me, that I had no idea was waiting for me, and nobody really knew it. Like when I started calling myself corporate storyteller in like 2006, 2008, when I shifted to startups, storytelling, what? Huh? Again, Festival of Storytellers, librarian, is it that? And today it's like this huge buzzword. So it's a lot about not imposing our beliefs in the world. I know my girls, probably what they end up doing when they grow up has not even been invented yet.
Yes. I love that because the world is moving so fast.
Podcaster, did 10 years ago anybody know what that means? Like
only Joe Rogan.
Right. And I did even call it a podcast back then. It's only, and what's cool is probably the kids today sound so old that don't even know, why it was a podcast, why it's called pod and any of that. So it's like these things are so accepted now, but a community manager, a blogger, a YouTuber, an influencer, these are all things that are just popped up in the last 5-10 years, even less.
Yeah.
And we're, like you said, we're moving fast. We're evolving. So why should we tell our kids, no, you have to go to school to become a fill in the blank?
Yeah, it's a really good point because there is a lot of struggle with, do we go to college? Do we do this? What's the point? And when you really start to think about it, there's a lot of things you can do without, like this podcast thing. I had no idea. Just 2 years ago, I'm like, I like to talk. I like to interview people. I like to meet new people. Let me see what I can do. And you look 2.5 years later, it's over 100 episodes. And you're like, how did that happen? I don't even understand.
Well, because you're having fun and you're in your ikigai. You're doing what you love. And you're doing something that obviously is bringing value to your listeners. Otherwise, they wouldn't stick around for 100 episodes. So that's exactly it. You found a niche of what you're good at, what the world needs, what you love doing. And when I say love doing it, you probably, you could record a podcast, the time slips away and you don't even realize that it's gone. So it's like, oh my God, gotta go. So that's exactly how I feel every day when I get up to write people's stories. I love it. It's an honor. It's a privilege.
So this ikigai for you, is this a thought that you had when you were going through this, or it was more of you've realized it going backwards that the dots connect, Steve Jobs says?
Probably a bit of both, because I think one thing I've been fortunate to do is to, how now we walk around with our heads in our smartphones and we don't always look up and who knows what we're missing. And I'm totally guilty of that as well. But I think even before the era of smartphones, there are times in our lives where our head was down for whatever reason, whether it's down, whether it's not looking, not paying attention. And then there's these moments that call to us, these aha moments, these billboards. They're like, stop, take notice. There's something here. And I was fortunate enough to get off on a few of those exits and not take the highway, take the byways. And by the way, I mean, it's so apropos when we take road trips, we always love to find like these sideways that are beautiful and scenic, because that really is what makes your trip rich, not going the path the most traveled. And I feel that way about life in general. If you look and you pay attention and you say yes, that's another key, saying yes and then figuring it out.
Absolutely. I love how that, I've never heard it described like that, but it's such a true point, because usually we find ourselves always looking for the destination when it's really the journey that we're on.
So true. There's this great piece that was on Ann Landers like decades ago when she was like Ann Landers, Dear Abby, the sisters, and it's called The Journey. And it's the story of, life is like this train and we're on this train and we keep thinking, oh boy, when we get to this destination, everything's going to be great and there'll be bands waiting for us. And then in the meantime, we pace the rows and we wait and we think, but the thing is that the destination is the end. And we're missing this beautiful journey along the way and all of the views and the rolling fields and everything. And that's like each time we reach a destination, it's like, okay, so what's next? What summit is next to climb? And sometimes it's just about celebrating those moments. And, again, we're doing storytelling without, getting into directly what it is. But that's what's amazing about it, because by telling this, how many people do you think are going, oh my gosh, you know what? That's true. Like you get the job promotion. Okay, what's next? Okay, so you get married. Okay, yeah, what's next? Okay, so you have kids. Okay, what's next? So instead of like okay, what's next? This is what's next. Enjoy that bit of the ride.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. It's so true. So for you, we get to 2008 and what's happening there? What's the transition?
2008, a little bit remnant of what's happening right now in 2022, cusp of 23 just started.
Absolutely.
I was just saying to a friend today that I don't remember there being so much lack of clarity and ambiguity, probably since 2008, maybe the first 3 months of COVID, when things were unclear and then they went kerflooey. But back then in 2008, everything came to a standstill. Now, I was working with Fortune 500 companies. And the first thing when there's an economic crisis, the first thing they do is they cut anything that's not essential.
Yeah.
So trainings, travel. I was flying all over the world giving workshops, everywhere from Glastonbury, Connecticut to Taipei, Taiwan, and in between. Suddenly, crickets. Like it stopped. And I'm like, okay, now I was younger back then. I was single, didn't have kids. It was just me, but it's still a scary place to be in. It's because it's the first time I experienced it. I'm like, okay, what now?
Yeah.
What can I do with these gifts? What can I do with this passion? What can I do with my skills? And
and as Donna dives into this, I want everyone listening just to realize that we're in a very similar situation right now. So you can use a lot of these tools at this moment. Exactly. And that's one of the main reasons I wanted her on, because those skills she has are very, very valuable. And like, we'll dive in on how like AI doesn't replace it. Nothing can take over. It's a very valuable skill. So it's super important to learn as she's doing it.
Each of you have this, like you may not realize it, but you have this ability, because it was about restoring my story at the time. Like, okay, how do I take it and repurpose it and find something else that could use it? And luck, serendipity, whatever you want to call it, had it. I decided to go, I studied coaching and NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, not natural language processing, which is the AI part. And one of the people I was working with had a client who was a cardiothoracic surgeon who was also a startup founder. He had created 2 medical devices, and he hired me to help him with his professional speeches, because he was one of these amazing, incredible guys that could have 3 back-to-back open heart surgeries, save lives, put him in front of a computer, he died. He was just like, he froze at the wheel. And we worked on his speeches. And then he said, I'm invited to this investor conference. I have opportunity to pitch both companies for 5 minutes. Can you help me with this? At that point, I had never worked with a startup, so the easy thing would be like, nah, I don't do this for startups. But then I was like, okay, well, a story is a story. Sure, why not? And we got these, and I went with him and I actually presented on his behalf. He was there to answer questions. That doesn't usually happen that way, but someone at his level, it was, acceptable. And then I saw the other 2 companies that had been invited to present in this room of 87 angels. Bomb. I mean, they were getting shot down before they even opened their mouths. And my heart broke for them. And I was just perplexed. I'm like, why wouldn't they take someone like me to help them with this? And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. whoa, again, little aha moment. And I started looking. I did not see anybody focusing on storytelling or pitch coaching for startups. Nothing at that time. And I'm like,
that that is the most fascinating thing, because I've dealt with some startups, and like you do some of those pitches and you have no clue. You literally just go in and try your best. And you're like, that's why your stuff is so valuable, because it's needed. People don't understand, and it's a valuable skill.
Got this one shot in front of, if it's one investor or 87 investors. And like, don't you want to prepare? This is your $1 billion shot. So I started, seeing that this wasn't out there. I'm like, okay, this is my next audience. And then come the voices. Oh, startups, they don't have money. They're not going to pay you. They don't think they need you. Oh, well, again, these same voices that they mean well, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And that's important to take those voices with a grain of salt, say thank you for the well-meaning, and then go back and really check with yourself. Okay. Now, if I had listened to all these people,
that's huge, because we don't realize, I realized that kind of going through that you might have mentors, you might have guidance, you might have people, but like, I'm sorry, your mom's not always right, your dad's not always right, like your coach isn't always right, your teacher isn't always right. And you have to realize that some people are better at certain areas of life and they can provide that advice. But the people who are probably providing that advice, you probably weren't even in the business world. What?
Had their own experience. And that was life taught them. And I mean, it's a very humbling experience becoming a parent and remembering what you said, that, our parents are not flawless, and our teachers and our mentors aren't, and kind of shutting up and getting out of the way of our kids, not giving them these disbeliefs or beliefs in themselves that could skew them the wrong way, letting them find path. And it's hard. It's hard to do.
I could only imagine.
It's hard to do, but it's fun. And you've got these amazing little humans that you just are like, oh my gosh, they're so going to far surpass my abilities. It's not even funny. But anyway, so I started, putting the word out through different startup circles. And then I was like, okay, now this was way before digital marketing. It was early Facebook days.
Yeah.
Nothing. So what I decided to do is offer, I called it sponsorship as a service. I decided to go to conferences or accelerators, which these were early days of tech startup accelerators, like Y Combinator was around, not really much anything else. So to offer my services to coach these pitches, just like a sponsor would. I mean, instead of giving money, I was giving services, making the pitches look good. And I said, all I need from you is for you to put my logo up with the sponsors and to acknowledge me at the event, like mention my name, that I worked with the pitches. Now, at first, they were like, no, we only take sponsorship as money. Sorry. And then these, again, it was Facebook, early days. I see like somebody tagged me, or I don't even know if they could tag me or mention my name or something, or sent me the message. Somebody, the organizer of this conference, is in bad shape because 10 pitches are going up and in 3 days, and they're terrible. And he was looking for somebody, and we thought of you. And so I emailed him. I'm like, hi, remember me? The sponsorship without money thing? And he's like, can you come work with these companies? And I said, sure. And the pitches were really good. I mean, look, I'm going to teach more. Like I'm the publisher of Diamonds. These are amazing individuals, but we just made them shine. And you could see people's face in the audience when they were pitching. You could like hear this murmur across the audience, like, this is really good. What's going on here? And then they said, and thank you to Donna. Back then it was Donna Abraham before I got married, for working with these startups. And people were like, who's this Donna person? Who is she? And I was there and I was like, and that was it. And it started to spread.
I think that is incredible that you were willing. And most people aren't, but it builds up enough goodwill, and that you showed the skill that you have, where you give it for free, and then you get the acknowledgement on the back end. But coming from stage where they're like, hey, we just raised $1 million. Thank you, Donna. Absolutely. No better acknowledgement than that.
And it's important, though. Don't just give things away for free unless you are getting some kind of value. I was very specific with them with my ask. I said, I will do this for free. I'll put in the hours. Thing I asked because I knew I wanted the visibility.
Yeah.
And that visibility made up for my time and then some. So if you're going to give services away, if you're going to do mentoring, if you're going to do, you want to make sure, and it's not like a lack of altruism. You want to make sure as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, that you are getting something out of it as well. I mean, we all can volunteer. We can all do wonderful things. I'm not saying post pictures of yourself feeding the hungry in a kitchen, but I'm talking professionally. This is something that can build your career.
100%. And you have to sit there and think through that opportunity. Like Donna already thought through it where she could ask. She's like, this is what we're doing. It's kind of similar. Like with myself, I had I do some coaching with Edwards Consulting, and basically I was meeting with people one-on-one, and I was getting super frustrated because I was like, this just takes so much time. People bail last minute. It's very difficult. So I spoke to someone who was a few levels ahead of me, and he's like, Jordan, come check out my group. And I'm like, sure, I'll check out your group. And he's like, Jordan, you should make a group. And he's like, just tell everyone to join the group. Tell all the individual people to join the group. They have the cohesiveness. If they miss, fine. You just committed 1 hour a day instead of all these random time blocks. And it's how you offer things a little bit better, where it's like, if someone in the audience wants to check out the group, come check it out. But it's no more of my time is taken because there's already the individuals there.
It becomes a marketing budget in a sense, or your sales budget. So you're giving your time, and you know the value of your time per hour, but at the same time, it's providing more value and more leads, hopefully, than it would be if you were just throwing money on a Instagram or a TikTok campaign.
Absolutely. I'm just saying, because I love the creativity, and most of the time people overlook that creative component, but like, I think it's super important how you integrated it to get all of these leads. And I can imagine some of them became clients, and now you're moving and grooving.
And other accelerators and I've really kind of built my authority as the leading storyteller for startups. And now with the book coming out, I hope to, take it up a few levels. So I decided to write the book because I wanted to be able to spread the gospel a bit further and help people in places. I get emails sometimes from someone in Rwanda or someone in Australia saying, you know what, I watched one of your videos on YouTube and it really helped me for our demo day at school. Thank you so much. I'm like, this is so amazing, because it's reaching people that A, wouldn't have found me otherwise, B, probably could not afford a session with me, but it's providing value. And to me, that's amazing. And with the book, it's like I've literally written the recipe book for the winning startup pitch.
Yeah. And I think it's a fantastic idea, because in the world where we are, where everything's commercialized, where you can get global, like in 2 seconds, someone from a different country can see you, it doesn't make sense not to. And the thing is that you want to tell it through Donna's eyes and Donna's words, not just the video, but that's why the book, Sticking to My Story, The Alchemy for Storytelling of Startups, is so beneficial. Because, and how long has this book taken? Where did it start? What's going on with it?
Well, funnily enough, I mean, I've had this book in me for many years, but knowing and then finding the time to sit yourself down and actually commit to the writing.
It takes a while.
Two different things. But they also say when the student is ready, the teacher arrives. And last year, I was being interviewed for a podcast for a wonderful marketer named Vince Warnock, and great guy. He's from New Zealand, just we totally hit it off. And in one of our prep calls, he mentioned that he had a book publishing company, and he helped people go through the process of becoming authors. And I was just like, okay, this is the right time for this. And I said, I want to hear more. And he sent me more information. And it was an extremely fair proposal. I've had people hit me up in LinkedIn over the years, $20,000 and we will write a book for you. We'll ghostwrite it. And I'm always like, but I don't need you to write it. I know how to write it. I just need to know, give me the tasks, I'll do it. But I needed the framework. And with Vince, that was exactly what it was. And I said, listen, this is not going to work unless I get accountability. I will pay extra to have an hour, half hour, whatever with you each week, on the calendar. So I'm kept accountable and I'm writing. And he's like, no problem. And that was it. I started writing in May, handed in my first draft in October.
Wow.
Yeah. And, we've just been back and forth proofing, editing and going through that, but he's, handling all the publishing and the nitty gritty. And I have an amazing publicist that's working on it now and gearing up for the launch in late February. And it's just so exciting and so fulfilling. And it's just like, you see the cover with your name on it. And it's like, what, how did that happen?
Well, and that's the funny thing, because I bet you 19-year-old Donna going through college and going through that acting school was never going to be like, I want to be an author.
I didn't know I wanted to be a storyteller. I didn't know I wanted to be an author. I didn't think of myself as a writer. I remember training with Brad back in the days when I started, working on presentations and business writing and everything. And I remember saying, I'm not a writer. And that's the thing. So we decide these things about ourselves, but I have written more stories in the past decade than I think a lot of authors have, because I write other people's stories. I help them write their story. That's what I do day in and day out. And then it was just only right that I write my own story and my story of how I story their stories. That's a lot of stories and blah, blah, blah. But that's exactly what it was. It's taking everything and all the experience and kind of bundling it together into one source of information.
So who is this book for? Who would get value from this book?
Honestly, when my publicist read it, she said that this is way beyond just for startups. This is something that everyone in tech should be reading, or anyone in business should be reading. And I agree, because storytelling is such a universal concept and there's a lot of really good stuff. However, we have geared it. At first, I was going to make it general storytelling for business, but that would have been like a 500-page book. So as I was working with Vince and laying out, and I'm like, oh, but I've got this and I've got that. And I'm like, he's like, listen, Donna, you've got 3 books here. And I was like, oh my God, I've got a trilogy. So we narrowed the first one down to the audience that is nearest and dearest to my heart, which is startup founders. It's what I do most of the time. So it is really geared first and foremost for startup founders, whether they're first time early stage or whether they're seasoned vets and they've raised money before. They're actually the smartest. They know how much time it takes to write a pitch deck. And they know that that's not time they want to waste as a CEO of a new company. So they come to me before they even start trying to do it themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So with the storytelling in general, how can like a normal person or someone just starting their business, how can they apply this to their life? Like you brought it up. Yeah. I mean, you brought it up in the beginning when I was like, so where does your story start? And you go, that's a very optional question. Like most people don't think about it.
And I could have just said, I was born here. I did that. I went to school here. I became a that. I mean, we can make things as dry or as fascinating as we want them to be. So it can be anywhere from how you engage with your friends and your family to how you engage with clients. First and foremost, storytelling is all about empathy. Okay.
Really?
It's counterintuitive to what a lot of people think, but it's not telling our story. It's telling our story in a way that touches on their lives, their needs, and their wants, making them feel, oh, I get it. That reminds me of the time that. So by talking about this problem or this need in the world, we want to touch on them. So the same with a startup founder. We don't want to just start pushing how amazing our product is. We need to make them understand why there's still a need for this in the world. What is the gaping hole? What is the pain? What is the villain in the lives of our audience or of the target audience? That's not the investors' lives per se, but it's the audience that we're serving. So kind of get that story. Usually I like to go with what I call the origin story.
Yeah.
What made you become a startup founder? What made you wake up one day and decide to go on this crazy ride? And usually there's a story there and there's like this moment of germination of the seed. And that's really fascinating. And then it's like digging that up, taking off all the layers of excess dirt and just showing just that.
Yeah, no, that's really fascinating. When I think about that myself, I'm like, I sit there and like, it's funny because you talk about this, but I was like, why did I do the Edwards Consulting? Why would I even start coaching? And it was because one of my friends, he was actually my roommate sophomore year. He decided that like life wasn't for him, and it was crazy because he was such a happy person, and it really impacted me because I was like, I totally, not that I could have, like, you can't stop somebody, but you can at least check in on them. And like, obviously this has gone in a bunch of different directions, but it got me to the point where I was like, if I can work together with other people in this manner, then I know I can help them in a positive direction, then I should do this. And it's funny because I don't really tell people that. Like, you're like, this is the most important thing, and you don't even tell people that.
That's exactly what will make them feel and empathize, because we all have lost friends or almost lost friends, or been like, if we could have only done more.
Yeah.
And it shows this human side of yours and this personal connection to it and the passion and the drive. So that's exactly the perfect example of storytelling. You know, whether you're in an interview or you're starting off, or you have something on your website, why my story? Why did I start this journey? And I start the book out with my story. I figure, I'm going to ask people to tell their stories. I might as well share mine. And it's similar to what I told today, probably in a bit of a different twist. But people feel a personal connection. People understand what you're coming from. People admire what the path you've made, and you're credentialing yourself, because you're saying, I've been doing this for a long time. I know it. I get people. I understand the need, and I'm there to help people look at their processes and not reach this point that my friend reached.
Yeah, it's really fast. I mean, it's interesting because I'm feeling it more like people don't really enjoy getting vulnerable. On sales calls, people are not vulnerable. They're very like, what's your like, I had a call today and someone was like, so what do you offer? Like, what is it? And I'm like, all right, like, I wanted to build rapport first, but I guess we can dive into what is it. And it's just, you realize you get a lot more out of it when you are vulnerable, because then they're going to have the reciprocity of being vulnerable, even if they're just listening, like you're saying, because then they'll relate with you and be like, I have that problem. Like, can we have a conversation? Like, how does that work? It's very, and I've never thought about it before until you brought that up. So I really appreciate that.
See, we all have these stories inside ourselves of our life, of our experience, and we don't always think of them. Like, if I asked you to just tell me a story about Jordan, I don't know if you would have done that, but asking, so tell me, Jordan, what was that moment that made you decide to become a coach and to do what you're doing? And that's where the story gets triggered. And then that's the gold.
Yeah.
So for a startup founder, whatever path they take, whatever was that moment that they realized there's a big problem in the world and they want to be part of the solution.
Absolutely.
Because investors are not just investing in their technology. Of course, they want a great technology, but they're investing in the people, in the team. Yeah. Who's there, and they want people that truly care, that are in this with their entire heart, soul, and mind, and not just their bank account, like some people that have been in the headlines of late, which just, the startup world and the crypto world are going through some upheavals right now.
So for you, I find it very fascinating that you're in Silicon Valley. Anyone I ever meet from Silicon Valley, I feel like they're like 3 to 5 years ahead of me. I'm in Tampa, Florida, and I'm like, what is going on with these people here? They know things, they see things. There's so many startups, but someone especially like yourself, you're seeing the future happen real time as you're helping these people raise money. And then we probably hear about them 2 years later when they're like,
or more. If it's pharma and they're not going to get into the market for like 10 years, it's crazy that the cures for cancer have already been discovered. Now it's getting them through the FDA and getting them marketed. So oftentimes life-saving things can get fast-tracked, but usually a medical device or a new medicine or a new treatment has to go through years of research and development, which is why, by the way, speaking of the pandemic, when whatever controversy, whatever, I was very grateful for there to be a vaccine. But I also knew that this took Herculean efforts to get out in the meantime. So when there's a motive, things can be done faster. We want to get people back to work. We want to get people out of their homes and out of this danger. But yeah, I get to see these incredible technologies that are truly making impact on our lives. And it's just amazing. It's like, it's so part of my day to day that I don't even think of it as novel.
No, but absolutely. That's why I wanted to hear about some of the things that you've been seeing. Like, we know about AI. We talked about ChatGPT a little bit. Like, what do you think about it?
I was on a podcast last week and I said something like, you've heard of ChatGPT? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, have you tried? And he's like, no, I haven't tried it yet. And to me, that was just like, you've got this amazing toy on, like, how could you not have tried? But I mean, again, that's the Silicon Valley. That's the startup geek in myself that I can't not try this. So I'm sitting there with my husband last night and I'm building a new website. I was trying to find a specific image.
I did the same thing. I took the words. Yeah.
Has a subscription for Midjourney, which is one of the AIs that create, like, you give them prompts and they create pictures for you. And it's mind-boggling, these things that come up, and you have to refine it and you have to talk. But this is the future. It's here. And it came on fast. It's been a long time in the making, granted. This didn't happen overnight. This has been in development for years and years and years. And OpenAI has been a project that's been in development for a very long time. But it kind of burst onto the scene.
Absolutely. And when you really start to think about it, it's not going to hit the world. Like, some people are using it, some people aren't, but you're not going to really hear about this for years.
What people are going to be hearing about is jobs that are made redundant pretty soon. I mean, we've been moving towards automation for a long time, but it's going to come as quite a shock to people.
Are you seeing a lot of that? Because I've been hearing from a couple friends where their jobs, they're implementing similar ideas where he's like, they don't make mistakes. These machines don't make mistakes.
They don't need a break, and they don't need vacation, and they don't need to stop for lunch. It's going to, no. Okay. So let's weigh the what yes and what no. I don't think that AI is yet going to completely replace humans, because it's not yet at the level of human reasoning and human task oriented and follow through and sensibility and making sense of things that humans are. AI has the capacity to reach enormous amounts of information in a split second, seemingly. Again, I'm a little leery because there's no quotes of where the resources are. I mean, can we trust the stats that they bring? So there's going to be a while to vet the information, but look at call centers. I've seen AI startups with voice for several years now that they have a voice that sounds exactly like a human, knows how to have human. It's not those annoying either call centers where you can't understand the accent, or like this, but you have reached Citibank, or real person. It sounds like you're talking. Hi, this is Harry from Citibank. How can I help you today? And then you say, oh, would you like that? And so it really feels like you're having a conversation with someone. And they can do it better and faster and more precisely. Why pay for hundreds of people in a call center? So these are the things that are at risk. A lot of automated. I mean, look at drivers. Once there's a license for non-driving, autonomous truck drivers.
Tons of jobs.
There may have to be someone in the vehicle for the first few years to ensure that it's going where it's going, but they won't have to drive. They can just sleep and be there and not have the stress, have it be much safer, everything measured by the millimeter. If there's a ways to go, this is the future we're looking at.
Yeah. So for you, what are you telling, or what are you really seeing for people that maybe want to be a part of this, or maybe and don't want to be left behind? What do you think they should do?
I had a conversation with someone a couple of weeks ago about ChatGPT and how it's coming into schools, and some schools are banning it. I'm sure that when the internet came out and was made available in schools, they wanted to ban it because it's like, kids are going to be able to search for the answer on Google now.
Yeah.
Even when a calculator came out, kids can do the mathematical code. Like my 6-year-old got hold of a calculator a few weeks ago and her mind was blown. that there's this little machine that can do all the
Because they tell you 2 + 2 is 4. And why do I have to memorize this whole table?
Exactly. But how much more efficient is it that we don't need an abacus to count? So I think if we embrace this technology and see that it's going to make us more efficient, once it's in the right, look, these are very early phases. Granted, even though it seems very advanced, it's still early. So we're going to have some time to adjust to this. But I think embracing the new technology is important, not being scared of it and what we do. And I think it will create other types of jobs. Like, just like we said, the creativity of humans is not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Yes, we have these AI artists now, but they have trained on millions and millions and millions of images. So if artists can embrace that and learn how to create in a way that can generate these things, that's great. There's going to just be new models. There's going to be a lot of new things. So maybe I'll be replaced. And I actually, in my last chapter of my book, I used ChatGPT and Jasper AI, and I asked them the question, well, what is the future of storytelling for startups? And they had some very interesting things to say. And I co-wrote that chapter with them. Little spoiler, I'm not worried yet about them taking over yet. I still got a few good years in there. But
I think it's super important that we all realize that we can always retell our story. Like you've done several times throughout your career. It's okay to retell your story. If you've been a realtor for 5 years and now you want to go into sports management or do something different,
this is the time to make a shift. And we've seen the past few years, the gig economy and the great resignation and Gen Zs wanting to do things in their own time. And it's great that they're able to. And I think that it's much more accommodating of how work will be in the future. And yeah, it's reinventing yourself. It's looking, okay, I have this skill set. I have these talents. Where else can I transfer that to? What can I do that I love? Maybe this is the opportunity to do that thing that you've always wanted to do. And the voices have said, no, don't do that.
And the best part is that no one realizes it, but we have, like, if you work a normal quote unquote job, or if you're a startup, or if you're any of these, there's always a few hours that you can make time. Like if you put that effort into learning about these AIs, learning about the crypto and what's going on with all of that, learning about the medical, it's all on the internet. It's all accessible and it's all available. And what that means is that you can make a change at any moment in your entire life to learn something new and go after that new skill, especially the AI one, because there's very few people who have it. Most people don't have that skill at all because they never even tried, because it's brand new too.
Yeah. It's an exciting world out there. There's a lot of twists and turns ahead of us, I think, and it's changing fast.
100%. 100%. But that's why storytelling is so important.
It's here. And just like, see, how can you embrace it? How can you make it part of your life? How can you better yourself using it?
Absolutely. But that's also why storytelling is so important, because we're introducing ourselves to so many different people all of the time. And we want them to understand quickly about who we are with the least words possible, because everyone's busy. So how do we do that? It's a very interesting thing. And that's exactly what a pitch deck is.
Yeah. And human connection is something that we still can create, that, and the empathy that the machines aren't there yet. It's they will themselves tell you, I am just a machine. I don't yet know that and how to do that. Like they'll say when it's something that's beyond their scope. So we still have a few good years to use our skills and talents as human beings and level up.
Absolutely.
Internet killed all professions. I don't think that we went into some kind of huge kind of depression or unemployment. I think the internet leveraged a lot of professions and made people able, like you said, to learn new skills, to do new things, to communicate from afar. And I think that the AI will do that as well. I don't know. I mean, I could completely be wrong. And we could all have, my older daughter said to me the other day, Mama, what happens if AI decides to take over? And question for a 9-year-old to ask. And I think, well, maybe that's a good question. And right now, I don't think we're in any danger. Do I know? Because I'm not going to tell her that. I don't. I said, but let's hope that we still keep the reins. Because you see all these, the Will Smith, iRobot,
the movies, yeah,
robot, them taking over. That could happen if you give machines that kind of human spiritual connection somehow. And I know companies are working on that.
It's crazy. So I know we're winding down. With storytelling, we have to lead with empathy. What else would you say that is a really actionable step someone could take when presenting themselves next to their parents, their friends, interview, any dynamic there? What do you think is really powerful? Because it's definitely lead with empathy. Is there anything else for that?
Find the right story to capture the message you're trying to put forward, whether it's a story, a metaphor, an example, something that they can identify with and go, oh, yeah, I got it. That reminds me. And that creates that kind of connection. Simplify complex messages through stories in simple language. So when we have to take what does your startup do and create this one line that I call your simple solution statement, it's a we do X for Y by Z kind of thing. And it's simple, but it ain't easy to write one sentence as what it is that we do. But when we can crack that simple statement of what it is that we do, that people go, oh, I got it. Tell me more. Then we've got permission to proceed. And then we want to demo things. We want to give examples of how it's helped other people's lives. Always try to go for, the example that's the most human, that's the most that we can identify with that. So even in telling the business side of things and the number side of things, don't just throw out a whole line of numbers. What does that mean? Okay, so there's significant growth and there's going to be significant growth. And this is going to be used in a variety of different use cases. Oh, I see that now. You don't have to go into every single line of the Excel that you found.
Absolutely. You got to simplify it. You got to make it easy. You got to make it relate to them. So, Donna, where can people find out more about you if they want to work with you? And then if they want to get your book, Sticking to My Story, The Alchemy for Storytelling of Startups, is there, where would they find that as well? I know that's not out yet.
Available for pre-order on Amazon any day now. And my website is donnagriffit.com. So GRIF as in Frank, F as in Frank, IT, no H. It's like Melanie Griffith without the H. There's a story there too. My father-in-law totally made up the name Griffith, but it always is, again, a nice little conversation starter because people are like Griffith, Griffiths, Griffin, Griffiths. So it's Griffit, one T at the end.com. And I have a lot of resources there, and the book page will be there. So you can sign up and get informed about the launch and what's happening and different tidbits and everything. So please do visit there. And anyone interested in my services, you can reach out to me through the site. Please mention Jordan's podcast special discount for listeners. So just mention that and we'll talk.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we'll put all of that in the show notes. Donna, this has been phenomenal. Thank you for sharing with us about storytelling, about stepping into the future, and just really all of it. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Good luck.
Thank you for reaching the end of the podcast. For that, we'll give you a complimentary coaching session in the link below with Edwards Consulting. Hope to see you there, and have a great day and keep clocking in.